Do you ever feel like the borders of your country are being slowly invaded by a hostile force that seeks to slowly take more and more of your territory? Maybe you feel like the outer 5 to 10% of your recovery country have been pushed back by an enemy, and you're now facing constant shelling as the enemy seeks to expand and encroach on each area of your life. You know, I get it. At times I feel like this. In this episode, I want to talk about the art of war, losing territory, and how to regain it. Welcome aboard.
Ready?
When it comes to porn, are you stuck, spinning out, or slipping backwards in your life? If so, then welcome to the Finding Traction podcast, a show dedicated to those who are looking to gain recovery momentum away from porn and toward the life and relationships they have always hoped for. Now, here's your host, Vern Tomke.
Well, if you've been listening to this podcast for any period of time, you probably know that I do love to walk with guys and help guys in terms of their own journey out of problematic porn use and towards a much, much better life. There's different ways that I can help you. Sometimes it's getting people in just our monthly community group. Other guys, we actually will get together with a group of guys and walk through our Finding Traction course, and we'll do that on a weekly basis. Some guys are looking for personal coaching, and they want some individualized coaching to help them deal with different things in their lives. And in all of that, I say I'd love to help guys. I'd love to talk with you, even if you want to get together and do a free Zoom call where you just tell me a little bit about your story. Once again, I'd love you to reach out to me. My email is bandofbrothers.care@gmail.com. bandofbrothers.care@gmail.com. Well, let's go back to this idea, the art of war, losing and regaining territory. And I think I've said it on earlier podcasts, but yes, I am a bit of a news junkie. I often follow up and want to know about what's happening in my own country, what's happening with, I am following the trial down in the U.S. I don't know which trial I would be following, but I am following it. I'm following what's going on in Europe, what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on, for example, in Russia and Ukraine. And I just find it fascinating. I like watching things that explain different idea of world events. And let me just say, one of my pet peeves, maybe it's because I love teaching social studies, which is one of the different hats I use. And recently I was in a sophomore class, that's grade 10 up in Canada, sophomore history class. And we were talking, and and the kids always know, about what's going on with Taylor Swift, or, the feud between Drake and Lamar Kendrick. That, of course, is what they know about. But I asked them about Alexei Navalny in Russia, and 30 kids looked at me with a blank stare. They had no idea who he was. And maybe you don't know who he was, so I won't make you the object of my wrath, but he was I think, very much a hero. One of the few guys who stood up to Vladimir Putin, was poisoned with a nerve agent, and then went back to Russia to stand up, and has since died being in a prison camp, most likely by under Vladimir Putin's orders again, because it's a big deal, and not everyone agrees with me. But again, I am very interested in what is going on in the world. And one of the conflicts that I've been following and really has broken my heart is what's going on in the country of Ukraine. Because like my opening line of territory, really, I feel horrible for the Ukrainian people as a dictator essentially seeks to invade a sovereign country in the hopes of returning the old Soviet Union to its former glory. At least that's the way I see it. And as you've been following that war, you've seen Russia has been slowly taking pieces of Ukraine under the pretext of protecting the local population that speaks Russian. Echoes of World War II, anybody? And the way Russia takes over a territory is they mass troops and then they simply pulverize the next area by firing artillery in at the area, leaving, whether there's civilians or not, simply pulverizing an area before they move into the next area. Recently, I watched an Academy Award documentary called 20 Days in Mariupol. And it documents two Associated Press journalists who are stuck in Mariupol at the start of the war as the city is bombed from all sides with unbelievable civilian casualties, daily horrific occurrences. And eventually they're able to smuggle their footage out of the city, share their footage with the world, to which the Russians responded that the footage was all staged by actors, which I would say pretty amazing actors and pretty committed to their craft to lose arms and legs and in terms of the greater play, right? But to follow this example, Ukraine is trying to stave off this Russian offensive. Right now, of course, the second largest city, Kharkiv, is in danger in the northeast part of the country. All right, enough of my history, current events thing worked out of my system. What does this have to do with recovery? And why does this word picture have to do with the struggle in our lives? Well, I really feel at times that this word picture actually summarizes how I feel. I mean, I long for full control over my territory, right? That's when my boundaries are secure. I'm living in peace. I'm confident in my recovery. And I'm experiencing the benefits of who I want to be in my calling. So that is when I have full, territory and control over my boundaries. But then something happens. There are periods of time when it feels like the enemy has invaded the outer 5% or 10% of my land. They move their troops in, and then they begin to shell the next 5 or 10% of my now smaller area of land. I mean, it literally feels that way at times. It feels contested. Now, why is that? Why does it feel that way? I mean, sometimes it's just random. I have a day where it just feels like I'm being shelled and I'm constantly getting pushed on the outer edge of my territory. But other times, I guess I am partly to blame for that. You know, you may say, well, what do you mean? Well, whenever I practice edging, even in its smallest forms, you click on something like a bikini ad, or you see something about a game, with a scantily dressed gal, or you go through and you spend time looking at a short on YouTube, or you do something. What you do is you get that random reinforcement. And now what happens, even if you scroll away from it or shut it down, it feels like you've just moved your troops back 2, 3, 4% in your territory. Your country is now a little smaller. And then what happens? It happens again. And you move your troops back just a little bit. Over time, all of a sudden, you know that the outer enemy is not happy, and then they start lobbing artillery shells over to seek to take the next line. Of course, in this word picture, you know that the outer enemy is not happy until you basically essentially wave the white flag and end up in a full or total relapse. Here's what I know. Whenever I give up territory in my life, it's harder to get it back. It's always easier to defend land than it is to take land, to take new land. Apparently, there's an old wartime doctrine that you should have 3 attackers for every defender, because it's easier to defend than it is to attack. Here's what I know. Whenever you give territory over something or someone, it's much harder on you to regain that old sense of peace back within your original boundaries. I mean, frankly, it's one of the things and one of the underlying motives that I use whenever I'm tempted to edge. I'm going, you know what? If I give this 5 or 10%, and just try to have a little bit of a buzz, what's going to happen is that I am simply going to create a much harder battle for myself tomorrow. Now that thought will stick with me. Now those shells will be lobbed in even greater frequency into the rest of my country. Now I have to deal with this greater disturbance in my force, right? So if I have a battle for 20% of my land today, and I do some edging and I do little things around the edges, now I have to fight 30% of my life. And then my whole day and my whole life feels like one contested battleground. So for me, sometimes it's just, no, I don't want that. I want to live in peace and security and serenity as much as possible. Sure, I'm going to have days where I feel off and it's a bigger struggle, but why invite new struggles in? That's just stupid of me. So it's a great reminder for me, and I really like this word picture. So you may say, okay, I feel like I've lost some of my outer territory, Vern. What would you suggest that I do on how to regain that territory? Well, I'm just going to give 4 or 5, and this is not rocket science, and you've heard this in many different settings, but I'm talking about it within this context. Number 1, you have to have a ruthless commitment to your boundaries, to your borders, even when you feel strong. Boundaries are like good air defenses. They shoot down temptations even before they get to you. The reason I have boundaries that I use is because the bottom, sorry. Oh, I got to sneeze. My goodness. Well, we got to leave that in. Boundaries are like, again, good air defenses. So the reason that I do simple things like when my wife goes off to work, I have all my remote controls put away, is I often don't need that. But there's certain days where I'm really going to need it. So I just say, I'm going to have that boundary in place at all times. The reason I go to bed with my wife is not because I couldn't stay up more often than not and be okay, but eventually one day something will happen and I'll be tempted to edge. The boundaries, I need to ruthlessly commit to the boundaries that I need. There's a great verse in the book of Proverbs in the Old Testament that says, like a city whose walls are broken down is a man who lacks self-control. Part of my self-control isn't, I don't want to live out in the form of willpower. Part of my self-control is simply having good city walls. So that's the first one. Number 2 is a ruthless commitment to check in all edging. Edging are those little things that that I'm telling myself don't make a difference. I can have a little hit and it's not going to make a difference. That is not the case. I need to check that in. I need to stop that drift, that 5%. Every time I edge, it's like I'm moving back my defenses, my troops, a mile or 2 from the outer part of my boundaries. No, ruthless commitment to check in all edging. Number 3, a ruthless commitment to your community of fellow travelers. Right? Now that's assuming, of course, that you have a group of travelers, like in a group, that you're working with guys in a recovery group, like what I'm in. I'm in a bunch of them, of course, because I lead a bunch of them, but I'm also in 1 or 2 that I don't lead. It's a ruthless commitment to that, because when I'm just on my own, eventually I talk myself out of doing the things that I need to do to maintain my recovery. The next one is practicing a ruthless practicing of your positive and negative reminders. I have some great rewards in place that continually help me to go, this is what I'm looking forward to. I've shared a number of times when Father's Day is coming up, I have this great woodworking tool that I'm buying to help and put in my shop that's going to really be of benefit to me when I redo my cabinets. So I'm looking forward to that. I call that to mind. That's a way of saying attaboy. But at the same time, I also have things that go, you know what? If I act out, I might even be able to fool people that I'm just doing fine, but I'm going to commit myself right now to a negative reminder. You know, some guys do different things. My most recent one, because it's not football season, that's one of my, I don't watch football on the weekends if I act out. My other one is I'm not going to drink coffee for 30 days. Now that I've said that, I have a hard time did I just say that? I don't know if I can be human without coffee in the morning. But I've said that as a way of saying, you know what? This is important to me. It's that important to me. This is all about the last one, about commitment to play the tape forward, to continually ask myself, if I edge, if I act out, if I relapse, then what will have to take place? Play that tape forward. Talk about the things that you'll need to do. Talk about the implications, the results on your life. Don't just pretend it's not going to make a difference. It is. And playing the tape forward is as simply as, as saying, if I act out, these are all the things that will naturally result to that. And I don't want that in my life. Instead, I want a full experience of living within all the boundaries that I am meant to live within. So, whether or not you are a news junkie or you love to keep track of current events, I would just say this. I hope and pray for you that you live fully within the freedom of experiencing all of the territory that you were meant to live in your recovery. So here's to next time. God bless.